Houdini engine for Godot version 0.6 just released, so this is an updated introduction video. If you're already familiar with the plugin, there will be a separate update video which goes deeper into technical details. If you're new to Houdini, it's a procedural software used heavily in the film and game industry for VFX and procedural environment, and Houdini engine brings its powerful procedural environment generation directly into your game engine editor. HEGo brings that workflow into Godot with generation of meshes and terrains, as well as spawning of instances and Godot nodes and scenes. HEGo is a C++ GD extension which aims to allow vast customization for Houdini artists making tools for Godot. The C++ side of the plugin wraps Houdini API calls into a few easy-to-understand classes which are exposed to GDScript, where users can customize how input and output data is handled. However, that doesn't mean you need to write any code to use the plugin. HEGo comes with a default HEGo Node 3D, which covers a lot of use cases out of the box and lets you use your HDAs inside of Godot very quickly. In this video, I will focus on this out-of-the-box workflow using HEGo Node 3D, quickly showing mesh generation, multi-mesh instancing, spawning arbitrary Godot nodes, as well as terrain 3D generation and instancing. I also show how inputs and parameters are sent to Houdini. When you are inside Godot with Houdini engine for Godot installed, your main interaction point is going to be this bottom panel here. Now, I have Houdini open here, so I can use session sync, but you can, of course, also use a headless regular Houdini engine session. I just have this open, so you can see what's going on inside of Houdini. The first example I'm going to show is a simple mesh generation. So I'm going to quickly start the session, and now my session is connected here on the Houdini side. And in the scene, I'm going to create a HEGo Node 3D. And now, by default, this doesn't do anything. I have to actually assign an HDA, so I can click Pick HDA Asset, and then I get a selection of installed HDAs, or loaded HDAs for the project. I know I want the stylized tree generator, so I will quickly select that. And if I hit Recook now, it will instantiate this HDA inside of Houdini, and in Godot, I will get the generated output. Now, this tree looks quite ugly, so I am going to select a preset for a tree that I know looks nice. So I will recook this, and now I get a nice updated mesh result inside of Godot. Now, this HDA actually also allows feeding in a guide curve for the tree, so I will quickly create a path 3D node as well. And in this path 3D, I will create a bunch of points, so maybe something like that. Yeah, that looks reasonable. And now I can add an input here, drag and drop this path 3D into the input, hit recook. Now this curve is uploaded to Houdini, and now my tree follows this guide curve. And now I could, for example, go in and select this point, move it, do something crazy just to make it very obvious, recook. And now I get my crazy updated tree inside of Godot. Maybe I want to move this point and recook again to get a bit more of a reasonable tree. Well, a very bent tree. Now, the tree example was actually quite the slow HDA, so I want to show a bit of a faster mesh generation HDA, just to show that autocook also works properly. So I have this HEGo Node 3D here that generates this fence. If I hit recook, it gets instantiated, and if I enable autocook, it will automatically cook whenever I change parameters. So you can see I can change the height, I can change the amount of planks, I can change the wonkiness, and it basically instantly updates. What doesn't instantly update yet is if you change the input. So sadly that does not work yet. So if I move the path, I have to actually hit recook. But the bottom panel stays attached to the last HDA it opens, so you can, while you have the path selected, you can move it around and hit recook and still iterate pretty quickly. Next, I'm going to show terrain generation. So this requires you to have the Terrain 3D add-on installed. A link will be in the description. But here I have an HDA that generates terrains. So if I hit recook here, You can see it instantiates the HDA generating the terrain inside of Houdini here. So now in the background there's the conversion running to convert this into a terrain 3D. And now we have our terrain 3D here, including texture layers. It also supports whole maps, and you can enable and disable regions based on an additional layer, but check the documentation for more details on this. But maybe just to show that you can change this now, I will change the erosion level here, hit recook. Now this of course has to be converted again, so this does take a couple seconds, but we should now see a different result. Now I want to set this back to 1 and enable instancing, and hit recook. And now what it's doing is it's generating a bunch of instances using the terrain 3D instancing system. So this doesn't use the multi-mesh instancing, but the terrain 3D instancing. Under the hood, this is still using multi-meshes, but I just wanted to support this workflow in case someone wants to also put other instances into the terrain 3D instancing system. So you have the option of using either the HEGo instancing way, spawning raw multi-mesh instances, or using the terrain 3D instancing system, which also uses multi-meshes under the hood. So now you can see I get my instances spawned here on the terrain. And if I go into the terrain 3D here, you can see the texture layers it created. So you have to have the terrain selected. So these come from layers inside of Houdini with attributes on them. And then also under meshes, you can see all the meshes that it created. And you can also customize things like the LOD settings with attributes on points. I'm going to stay in this terrain 3D level for a second to also show sending terrains over to Houdini to then spawn things on terrains. So I have a biome generator HDA here. If I recook it, you can see that it sent the terrain over to Houdini. That is because it was already set up as an input here, and also a area curve for the boundaries where it was supposed to generate in. And you can see this generated a bunch of multi-meshes containing the instances, but it also generated collisions. So if I, for example, select this collision shape here, and then move over there, you can see this generated a capsule collider for that rock. And maybe if I go for this one, well, it's another rock, but it does the same thing for the trees. Maybe here you can actually see the capsule collider. Yes, so all of that is generated using attributes on the points, and it's spawned on this terrain, which is sent over to Houdini through this input. HEGo also supports sending CSGs over to Houdini. So here I have a CSG combiner, which just combines 2 boxes and a polygon, making a building shape. And I have an HDA here, which takes that as an input. Now, it doesn't actually generate anything fancy. It literally just outputs the same mesh that came in, but it's just to show that you can, in fact, also feed CSGs into Houdini. So here I get the CSG input on the Houdini side, and now I could make a fancy building generator, for example, using this input. Of course, you can also send regular meshes to Houdini. So here I have a biome generator in a level that doesn't have a terrain. If I hit recook here, you can see that it sends over this box mesh, which is the floor. Of course, it works also with more complicated meshes. This is just an easy example. You can also feed multiple meshes. So I will quickly show that. I actually have 2 meshes prepared here. So if I feed those 2 mesh instances as well, and I hit recook, you can see that now I get output generated on those box meshes as well. And in Houdini, you can see that they arrived correctly. So that was a quick overview of current features and demos. The examples shown are all included in the demo project on GitHub. Please see the documentation on hego.readthedocs.io for details on installation and how to set up your HDAs to work with the integration. Note that it currently does require a commercial Houdini license, but I am in talks with SideFX to hopefully allow indie licenses in the future. There's a Discord server where development updates are shared more frequently, and you can share feedback and ask for assistance. Please let me know if you want guides on any particular feature or generator type. The GitHub documentation and Discord server will be linked in the description. Thank you for watching.